This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I felt
really
right.
But I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
It was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Story Collider, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird and wonderful it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and today's episode is a special episode produced in partnership with the Allen Institute. The Allen Institute was founded 21 years ago by philanthropist Paul G. Allen with the goal of tackling some of the most complex questions in biology through big, team, and open science. The stories featured in today's episode are from a show we hosted at the Allen Institute in September during their Open Science Week. Open Science Week is an annual celebration that highlights the impact of the Allen Institute's open science practices, like sharing data, analytical tools, lab protocols, and other scientific resources freely and publicly to accelerate discovery. So, in the spirit of open science, the storytellers openly shared their personal journeys, revealing the human side of science that often gets hidden behind lab coats and big words. And while each storyteller might be at a different stage in their career and come from a very different background, what they have in common is their love for science, which carried them through the ups and downs of their path to the Allen Institute. Our first story is from their gene therapy program research associate, Max Departee. Max's story is a classic tale of self-doubt and feeling like you don't belong in a PhD program, which, if you've done a PhD, is very relatable. But also, as someone who hasn't done a PhD, I still found myself totally relating to Max. I love this story, and I can't wait for you to listen to it. Here's Max.
The only sound in the microscopy suite is the whirring of the computer fans and the clicking of the shutters on and off. And it's totally dark, except for the cone of light that's projected by the computer monitor. It makes me think how looking at cells in a microscope really reminds me of looking at meteors through a telescope with my dad when I was 12. The two of us sitting on the hood of his car as the Perseids streak across the sky. And I learn about, how he puts red film over the dome light so it protects our night vision, and how astronomers name meteor showers out of the constellation it appears that they're coming from. And I've always been curious about the world around me. Ever since that age, I think I knew that I wanted to be a scientist. So as the fans whir and the shutters click, I take out my phone to check my email, and I see a message that I have been waiting months and maybe years to receive. See, for the last 4 months or so, I've been waiting for a reply from my grad school applications. And at this point in the spring, it is getting really late, and I'm starting to lose some hope. And I'm starting to doubt this newly formed identity as a young scientist I have, and am also starting to question, why was it that I wanted to go to grad school anyway? Why did I want to get a PhD? I always assumed that after college, I would go on to that next step. But anyway, so when I see the word accepted, I'm just able to let out all of the months of stress and anxiety and doubt. And as I jump out of my chair, just start crying and laughing and smiling at the same time. And as I'm dancing, I can taste the tears and I have a smile ear to ear. And I probably looked like one of those, what emotion are you feeling today posters, but if you just squished them all into one person at the same time. Despite how excited I was about this and how long I had been waiting, I decided not to tell anybody for days. See, for now, it was still all mine. The doubt and the hesitation, the excitement, the possibility, and the choice, the option, it was still mine. But I felt like as soon as I told anybody, the option was gone. See, it didn't seem like it was my choice whether or not to go. I had studied, I had trained, I had applied, and now I got in. And so, who was I, whether or not I'm doubting if I want it or not? Who am I to say that I'm not going to? So I accept. When I show up at the University of North Carolina, I'm hit by this wall of heat and humidity that, as somebody who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I did not know that existed on planet Earth. Thank God labs are climate-controlled environments. Otherwise, I don't think I would have stayed in that state. And during my first year, I learned so much incredible science. I learn about how researchers are trying to use aspects of our immune system to create the first vaccines for HIV. I learned how hepatitis A virus, it circulates in our bloodstream in these lipid envelopes in order to hide itself from detection by our immune system. And, I'm just fascinated by everything around me and love what I'm learning. And, I should feel totally at home. But I've never felt more out of place in my life. I just can't stop comparing myself to, these incredible people that I get to call my friends and my colleagues, like people that, it seems like they showed up here and they were just in overdrive already. And for the first time in my life, I can't seem to get out of second gear. So my lab bench is right in the center of the lab where everybody who walks by can see me and say hi. Normally that's, totally all right. But today's not one of those days that's all right. I'm loading up another plate to run a PCR experiment, and I really should be paying attention, but my mind is completely preoccupied. My head's just racing with all these thoughts about my, anxiety about my project, doubt about my potential and, what I was doing there. And as I feel that kind of cold sweat coming and just hear the normal thoughts racing around, what are you doing here, Max? You don't belong here, all right? Like, you're not good enough. You can't come up with a research project, and you're not going to be able to design experiments or anything. You have to just figure out how to get through this without letting anybody know how worthless you are, okay? And as I start to notice the slight tremble in my hand and lightheadedness, I realize that in this effort to stop myself from crying at the lab bench, I'm not breathing anymore. I realize that I'm holding my breath and tightening my chest. I'm flexing my core and drawing my arms in like I just want to fold and crumple and hide inside of myself and just disappear. Now, I don't have to have a PhD to know that I cannot sustain this anaerobic lifestyle, but it's fine. Everything's fine. I've done this before. So I gently set down my equipment, stand up, and take a few steps around the corner into the unused tissue culture room or into the cold room. Make sure that I'm alone. And I just let myself implode and cry until these thoughts stop racing and the panic attack passes. Well, I think I'm 1 year down, only 4.5 to go. At this point, one of the only things really keeping me going was that later on that summer, a total solar eclipse was set to pass over the United States, and I was about to leave in a few days to go meet my brother and some college friends and backpack through the Grand Tetons. Now, my apartment isn't very big, but I couldn't think of anything better to do with the space than to just lay out every single piece of camping gear that I own. And so for days, when I'm going into the kitchen, I'm stepping over my folded tent and into the bathroom, walking past the mess kit. Every time I see it, I just get more and more excited about this trip and, realize I haven't been this excited about anything in a long time. I don't know if I've been excited about anything in a long time. Arriving at our campsite, directly underneath the massive peaks of Grand Teton, I just breathe in that familiar tranquility of the high alpine tundra with the dry air, open sky. We spend our time recalling stories from past trips we've had and laughing way too hard at like really dumb inside jokes that we had in college. And, it kind of just feels like a dream. Like it's pleasant and enjoyable, but also kind of confusing. And I'm not really sure what's going on. You see, these last few days have kind of planted this idea in my head, this crazy idea. That I knew I was very unhappy. That I understood. But what was so revolutionary was this idea that I didn't have to be unhappy. On the morning of the eclipse, we got up, packed our things, and set out to a overlook where we were going to watch the day's events. As we're sitting there waiting for the moment of totality and snacking on trail mix, savoring that salty coating on the M&Ms that the peanuts leave, I don't really have any expectations for what to come, but you can just kind of feel this sort of energy welling up around us as it slowly starts to get a little darker and cooler. It's like there's a silent symphony somewhere tuning up. You can't hear anything, but it's like you can feel the reverberations off of their strings. And then the sky goes dark and everything gets quiet. And my mind goes quiet. For the first time in I don't know how long, I can't hear that voice that's telling me that you are incompetent. And I can't hear that voice that's telling me you don't have any other options. It's like the universe is, trying to tell me like this world is big and weird and crazy and awesome. And why would you think you know the one way that your life is supposed to go? I do have the power to make my own choices and to choose happiness. So back in North Carolina, looking at the pine tree out my window, I finally let myself put words to, these thoughts that have been forming over that last trip. That, quite simply put, there's nothing in the world that I want to do less that fills me with more dread and displeasure than the idea of getting up, going into lab, putting on a smile, and just continuing down that path that I now am not really sure why I ever wanted. So as I lie there, I told myself, I said, all right, well, this is my chance. This is when I get to make my choice. So I opened up my laptop and quickly closed the browser that had 25 tabs open because I didn't want to think about that. I drafted an email to my advisor and to the department head, informed them of my decision, and I hit send. Despite being totally confident, totally sure that this was the right decision, that I was making the right choice, I did not think that I would ever get over the weight of guilt and shame of that failure, of my failure. So in the days after, what really started to feel kind of like a, sick joke or conspiracy or something is how many people kept coming up and telling me, oh, well done, like, good job, that's great. I'm thinking, no, like, somebody tell me I'm a failure. I need some validation here, okay? Like, tell me I made it here. I'm supposed to stick it out and make it out the other end, right? Nose to the grindstone, like, for better or for worse. But I can tell that they all really mean it. And after all, I'm not the first person to have ever experienced self-doubt or, to question a path that they set out on. I'm definitely not the first person to ever leave PhD or, decide later that they don't actually want to run a lab for their whole life. I learned what they're all, really saying to me. And they're saying, well done for standing up and speaking out for yourself. And, that's great that you figured that out. And, good job choosing what makes you happy. That was 7 years ago this month that I looked out that North Carolina window at the pine trees. And depending on the day, depending on my mood, I still remember, at least, maybe I can feel a little bit of that shame that for so many years weighed me down and covered me. But for the most part, when I think about the whole experience, I'm just so proud about probably the best decision that I ever made in my life. And, ultimately, I learned that I learned to listen to myself and to what my body's trying to say. And I learned that all of us as scientists are so much more than our successes and our failures. Because failure is not a measure of your ability. It's just proof that you're trying. Thank you.
That was Max. To find out more about him or his work at Allen Institute, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller on stage is just one way to make Story Collider happen, but if standing alone in the spotlight in front of an audience doesn't speak to you, maybe becoming a Story Collider donor might be more your speed. Story Collider donors play a vital role in our ability to bring you this podcast. We're in this together. Story Collider is one big experiment that's designed to connect us around our love of discovery, curiosity, and the natural world. If you believe in the power these stories have and this mission, please donate to the Story Collider at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Story Collider. Hi, Story Collider listeners. Menopause doesn't mean you have to suffer. And with Alloy, you don't have to. Alloy offers clinically proven skincare like M4, a moisturizer made for women over 40, which our executive director and sometimes host Erin Barker has been loving. They also offer hair care and sexual wellness solutions, and when you choose Alloy, you get unlimited access to your own menopause-trained doctor. That's right, message them anytime, anywhere with ongoing care. No appointments, no waiting rooms. Take control of your health with Alloy. Go to myalloy.com to start your consult with a menopause-trained expert today. Also, when you visit myalloy.com and use promo code Collider, you get $20 off your first order from now until March 31st, 2025. So what are you waiting for? Head to myalloy.com and use promo code Collider today.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Our next story from the Allen Institute is from Program Officer Han Arbach. Han's story is a beautiful reminder that life's too short to hide who you really are and be unhappy. And I know that's often easier said than done, but Han shows us that while it takes courage to go after what makes you happy, it's totally possible and worth it. I can't wait for you to listen to their incredible story. Here's Han.
I was typing away at my laptop, trying to squeeze out a few more sentences on polymer chemistry to meet the minimum page requirement when I saw the flash and heard the ding of an email notification. The subject line was, "Congratulations, you've been nominated." And I thought, for what? What could I have possibly done to be nominated for anything? So I open the email and it says, "You've been nominated for the NCAA Woman of the Year Award." My heart sank into my stomach. I felt like I stepped on a slug with my bare foot. It was gross. So, ever the logical person, I went through how I might have gotten here. First, I acknowledged I did attend a historically women's college. Yes, I was a student. I was on a collegiate athletic team. Yes, I was an athlete. But really, they couldn't find someone who was more of a woman than me? I felt like I was taking up someone else's space. So I dubiously submitted my resume and other materials and waited. I was reading a structural biology paper for a discussion session and saw the flash and heard the ding of another email. Whew, my throat was dry. And I opened it and it said, "Thank you for trying, but you're not a finalist." I felt a wave of relief. I wouldn't be taking up space from someone else. I wouldn't have to tell them that I didn't feel like enough of a woman for this. I could take a deep breath. My heart rate calmed down. My secret was still safe. Onward to focusing completely on becoming a scientist. Every day during grad school, I walked down a hall, and on the wall were the portraits of all the previous department chairs. They were eerily similar. The same graying or balding white man, just a little variation each time. Once with a vest, once with a blue jacket instead of gray, once with glasses. All of these men had a look of power on their face, the kind where a single affirming nod could make or break the career of someone like me. Walking past these men and in their halls, I felt a fire light inside of me, and not the kind that's really quick with some lighter fluid, but that's low and white hot, that if you don't fully douse it, the next morning when you get up, it'll still be hot. But despite this, I wanted to be a portrait on the wall, right? I wanted to be the person that when you looked at that portrait, you should be a scientist. You could be a scientist, but the white hot determination couldn't quench the other thoughts rattling around in my head. Until one day I had an epiphany in the bathroom while I was washing my hands. The water in the sink was always way too hot, but you couldn't adjust the temperature. So I was trying not to scald my hands when I heard the squeak of a door open that needed some WD-40. And this door always squeaked, but I jump easily, so I turned and looked. And it was a senior faculty member. Her long hair was down as usual, her uniform knee-length skirt. And we made eye contact, and then she backtracks with the door open to check the sign on the bathroom door to make sure she hadn't entered the wrong bathroom. My immediate thought was rage. I felt rage. I wanted to yell, "Don't judge me. I'm just trying to use the bathroom and wash my hands. Why do you care what I look like?" But I had that deep sinking feeling in my stomach of a thought I hadn't acknowledged. This space wasn't for me. Not because I wasn't enough of a woman, but because I just wasn't a woman. I wasn't a man either. Could I be neither? Could I just be me? Was there space for me? The notion that had been passed around through childhood with varying levels of sincerity each time, just be yourself. Was that possible? Perhaps it was. I felt comfort in occupying that gray area, but with that comfort came the terror. Coming out as a lesbian was hard enough, and now this. I had decided for my postdoc and faculty positions, I would only consider jobs on the Blue Coast or in a major city. But this, should I even tell anyone at all? I needed data. So I talked to a mentor, and she was openly a member of the LGBTQ+ community. She had a presence in a room like she always belonged there. She was warm and inviting and had this laugh that was comforting and authentic. I was sweaty and nervous, and I went to her office, and finally I blurted out at about twice the speed, "If I come out as non-binary, will I completely tank my scientific career?" And she looked into my terrified eyes and she said, "Han, if you feel you have to hide such a big part of yourself somewhere or with someone, you will not be a successful scientist." And that was it. I needed to seek out those spaces where I could be open and empowered. This was the pep talk I needed, right? The warm blanket of support. But sitting there within that warm blanket was fear. Fear of imminent change, fear of the unknown, the fear you feel the night before school, the first day when you're picking out your outfit. You want to make that good first impression to belong. The fear right before you tell someone you love them for the first time. What if they don't feel the same way? What if I get hurt? I came out to my colleagues and friends as non-binary, and they loved and supported me. The first conference I went to after I came out, there were only gendered bathrooms, and I never went to the bathroom alone. Not like my colleagues were Secret Service agents protecting me, but They were there, making sure I wasn't being harassed. This was the acknowledgement I needed, the support I needed, the community, the ability to be open. Now I could just focus on the science. And I did that. I finished my PhD. I got a great postdoc. I was on track to get a faculty position. Everything was fine, right? Wasn't it? I spent hours at the microscope. My eyes were straining from the dim light of the monitors. Was my image in focus? Were there tears fogging up the eyepieces? I constantly felt like I was being pulled down a drain. I wanted to become a liquid and just ride wherever the flow took me. I was spinning. What brought me joy was going to other scientific seminars, was reading every piece of scientific literature that came across my desk. Spore formation, genome editing, placental biology. What was absolutely miserable was sitting at my own bench, doing my own research for my own project. I was sitting in my advisor's office one day and she asked, "Do you want to do this? Are you happy?" I cried. I hate crying, but I cried and finally got out, "No." And in that one syllable, I questioned if I was even cut out to be a scientist. Once again, I was taking up a space that I didn't fit the description for. Being a scientist was generating data, doing experiments, running a lab. If I couldn't do that, if I couldn't be that piece of my core identity, then what was I? I was spinning. Once again, I was falling apart. But this time, there was no gray area like with my gender identity. There was a stark dichotomy, a black and white. I could be a scientist or not. I told you I hate crying. I told this to my fiance on our first date. I don't cry. I don't need to. It doesn't do anything for me. It just gives me a headache. Yet here I was, sobbing into her shoulder. I didn't get a headache, but she comfortingly and soothingly told me, "Everything's going to be all right. You are smart. You are capable. You deserve to be happy." She wrapped me in a blanket, put a dog on my lap, and then another dog right beside me. And slowly her words became mine. "Everything will be all right." I logged into LinkedIn for the first time since I made my account in undergrad. I tried to not let that blue banner feel like a flag of defeat on my path to becoming a not scientist. And I started scrolling and scrolling and scrolling past how to crush your interview. What could there be out there for someone who had vast experience in frog pedicures and dabbled in herpes and pox virus research? Scrolling and scrolling, and then I saw it, the job post. If I could distill it down into a newspaper clipping, it would be something like this. Wanted, scientist who wants to explore the frontiers of bioscience. Inquire at the Allen Institute. My heart stopped, or maybe went double time, maybe both if that's possible. I don't know, I'm not that kind of doctor. I didn't know a job like this even existed. Yet here it was, nestled right in between a R&D role at a pharmaceutical company and a clinical trial coordinator. What do I want? What makes me happy? I had to answer these questions, the kind that your therapist asks you and leave you the long, most empty pause, because only you can fill that. Leaving behind the notion of what you thought something was and completely changing it is scary. But if you want to be a good scientist, you have to be open. You have to find the spaces to be bold and feel empowered. It was my first day at the Allen Institute. I went to orientation. I changed my password. I toured the building. I marveled at the copious amounts of free coffee now available to me. And then I finally sat down at my desk and I opened up my computer to check my email and saw the flash and heard the ding of an email notification. And then about 50 more. Okay, here we go. I checked my calendar expecting it to be completely blank, but I have a meeting in 30 minutes. At this point, I was thinking, I made a good choice on my first day outfit by picking something with layers because I am sweating so much and it would be embarrassing. So I walked down to with my new team to meet the external visitors that were coming for this meeting. And we're all going around the room introducing ourselves. And part of that is talking about how long we've been in philanthropy and grant making, and 3 years and 15 years and 8 years. And I'm still sweating a lot and I'm nervous, but it's my turn. I'm Han, I use they, them pronouns, and I have been here for 3.5 hours. I don't do experiments. I don't run a lab. I don't spend 14-hour days at a microscope. But here at the Frontiers Group, I explore the possibilities of bioscience. I look for what's next. I belong in this space exactly as I am. I am a scientist.
That was Han. To learn more about them, visit our website, storyclatter.org. And you can learn more about the Allen Institute's cutting-edge work at alleninstitute.org, and find them on social media with the handle @AllenInstitute. If you want to connect with Storyclatter, there are also tons of other ways you can do that. You can always follow us on social media. We're on X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter. Or if you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Storyclatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story, you can learn all about that on our website too. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Aaron Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of the Storyclatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Paula Croxton and Kent Whipple. A huge thanks goes out to the Allen Institute for sponsoring this episode, as well as a special thanks goes out to the Storyclatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week we'll be back with another Best of Storyclatter episode from our archives. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article? Search engines don't always get it right. But right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. Take control with Reputation Defender. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-811-4975 to speak to an expert.